You've been conditioned to believe that healing from burnout should feel like a steady climb back to energy, clarity, and motivation. But real recovery rarely looks like that. In fact, one of the most confusing parts of coming out of chronic burnout is that it can feel like you're getting worse before you get better. Your tolerance drops, your patience shrinks, your energy becomes unpredictable, and instead of feeling stronger, you feel softer, slower, and sometimes even more overwhelmed. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means something deeper is finally shifting. Burnout isn't just about being tired. It's a full system overload where your brain and body have been running in a prolonged stress state for so long that normal functioning becomes distorted. When recovery begins, your system doesn't immediately return to peak performance. It first exits survival mode, and that transition can feel disorienting because survival mode was the very thing holding you together. So instead of interpreting these changes as regression, it's more accurate to see them as signs that your system is finally safe enough to stop compensating. The following shifts often appear subtle, sometimes frustrating, but they are strong indicators that real recovery is underway. One of the first unexpected signs is your sudden intolerance for things you used to handle. Tasks, conversations, environments, or even small inconveniences that once felt manageable now feel draining or even unbearable. This isn't because you've become weaker. It's because your nervous system is no longer overriding its limits. During burnout, your brain suppresses signals of discomfort to keep you functioning. As recovery begins, those signals come back online. What you're feeling now isn't new weakness, it's restored sensitivity. Another shift is the strong desire for silence and reduced stimulation. You may find yourself wanting less noise, fewer conversations, and more time alone. In a high-performance culture, this can feel like withdrawal or isolation, but biologically, it's recalibration. Your brain has been operating in a state of constant input and output. Now it's trying to downregulate. Silence becomes necessary because it allows your system to process what it previously had no time to process. This connects to how the brain transitions out of chronic stress. When you're burned out, your system is often dominated by heightened alertness. As recovery begins, the body shifts toward restoration. That shift requires less stimulation, not more. It may feel like you're losing your edge, but what's actually happening is that your system is no longer forcing itself to stay hyper-alert. A third sign is emotional unpredictability. You might feel calm one moment and overwhelmed the next, or emotions you thought you had already dealt with start resurfacing. This can be confusing, especially if you believed you had already processed certain experiences. But during burnout, emotional processing is often delayed. The brain prioritizes immediate functioning over emotional resolution. When recovery begins, those postponed emotions resurface because the system finally has the capacity to process them. This is not a step backward. It's deferred processing catching up. Another indicator is the loss of social stamina. Interactions that once felt easy may now feel exhausting. You may find yourself needing more time alone after being around people, even people you care about. This isn't a loss of connection. It's a recalibration of energy expenditure. Social engagement requires cognitive and emotional resources. During burnout, those resources were stretched thin. Now your system is protecting what remains while it rebuilds capacity. This can be misunderstood as becoming less capable or less social, but it's actually your system setting more accurate boundaries. Over time, as recovery stabilizes, your social energy will return, but it will likely be more intentional and less forced. A fifth sign is difficulty initiating tasks, even ones you care about. This can feel like a loss of motivation or discipline, especially if you were previously high-performing. But motivation is closely tied to energy availability. During burnout, you are often operating on borrowed energy, pushing through fatigue using stress hormones. As recovery begins, that artificial boost is no longer present. Your system is no longer willing to run on emergency reserves. What replaces it is a slower, more sustainable form of energy. But during the transition, it can feel like nothing is working. This is where many people misinterpret recovery as failure and try to force themselves back into old patterns. That usually prolongs the burnout cycle. What's actually needed here is a shift in how you measure progress. Instead of looking for high output or constant motivation, progress becomes the ability to rest without guilt, to notice your limits earlier, and to respond to them more accurately. This ties into a broader neurological pattern. The brain is constantly balancing efficiency and safety. During burnout, efficiency is prioritized at the expense of safety. As recovery begins, safety becomes the priority. This changes how your system allocates energy. It becomes more conservative, more selective, and less willing to overextend. This is why recovery can feel slow. Your system is rebuilding trust. It's learning that it no longer needs to operate in constant overdrive. That learning process cannot be rushed. If it is, the system often reverts to survival mode. Another important shift is your changing relationship with productivity. You may notice that you no longer feel the same urgency to fill every moment or maximize every task. At first, this can feel like laziness or lack of ambition, but in reality, it's a recalibration of priorities. Your brain is moving away from constant output towards sustainable functioning. This is a critical stage because it challenges deeply ingrained beliefs about worth and performance. If your identity was heavily tied to productivity, this phase can feel destabilizing. But it also creates an opportunity to build a more balanced relationship with work and rest. Physical sensations may also change. You might notice more fatigue, heavier limbs, or a general sense of slowness. These are often signs that your body is finally entering a state where it can repair itself. Deep recovery processes require energy, and that energy has to come from somewhere. Reducing external activity allows the body to redirect resources internally. Sleep patterns can shift as well. Some people experience increased sleep, while others have disrupted sleep as their system recalibrates. Both can be part of the process, depending on how your body is adjusting. The key is not to immediately interpret these changes as problems, but to observe them as part of a larger transition. What makes this stage particularly challenging is that it doesn't align with common expectations of improvement. We expect healing to feel like gaining strength, clarity, and control. But before those things stabilize, there is often a phase of decompression. This is where the system releases what it has been holding. If you try to bypass this phase, you often end up reinforcing the same patterns that led to burnout in the first place. A more effective approach is to work with the process rather than against it. This means allowing more space for rest, reducing unnecessary commitments, and paying attention to how your energy fluctuates throughout the day. It also means redefining what a productive day looks like. Instead of measuring success by how much you accomplish, you begin to measure it by how well you maintain stability. Did you notice when you were getting overwhelmed? Did you take a break before reaching exhaustion? Did you respect your limits instead of pushing through them? These become meaningful indicators of progress. Over time, as your system stabilizes, energy begins to return. But it returns differently. It's less volatile, less dependent on stress, and more sustainable. Focus improves, but it feels calmer. Motivation returns, but it's not driven by urgency. It's driven by clarity. This is the transition from survival-based functioning to regulated functioning. It's important to recognize that this process is not linear. There will be days where you feel better and days where you feel like you've regressed. This variability is normal. The system is adjusting, not switching instantly from one state to another. The goal is not to eliminate fluctuation, but to reduce its intensity over time. Another key aspect of recovery is rebuilding trust with yourself. Burnout often involves repeatedly ignoring your own limits. Recovery requires doing the opposite, listening to those limits and responding to them. Each time you do that, you reinforce a sense of safety within your system. That sense of safety is what allows deeper recovery to occur. In a culture that rewards constant output, this approach can feel counterintuitive. You may feel pressure to return to your previous level of performance as quickly as possible, but rushing the process often leads to relapse. Sustainable recovery requires patience. It also requires a willingness to let go of certain identities. If you've defined yourself as someone who always pushes through, always delivers, always performs, then recovery will challenge that identity. It will ask you to become someone who also rests, who sets limits, who prioritizes stability. That shift is not a loss. It's an expansion. Mind care as self-care is not just a phrase. It's a structural approach to how you manage your internal systems. It recognizes that your mental and emotional states are not separate from your physical functioning. They are deeply interconnected. When you begin to care for your mind with the same intention you would care for your body, recovery becomes more coherent. You stop fighting your own system and start supporting it. So if you've noticed yourself becoming more sensitive, needing more quiet, struggling with motivation, or feeling emotionally inconsistent, consider the possibility that these are not signs of failure. They are signals of change. Your system is no longer willing to operate under the conditions that caused the burnout. It is recalibrating towards something more sustainable. And that process, while uncomfortable, is one of the most important transitions you can go through. Stay with it.